Hey guys, my name is Nogan and welcome to my C++ series. Today we're focusing on the second part of repetition structures, which is a for loop. Now, a for loop is similar to a while loop, like in the previous video, but the difference is the syntax again. But there is two similarities that the while loop has to a for loop. When you're using the first case, which is like the control, the counter control structure in while loop, that is similar to a for loop, as you'll see in a moment. Now, a for loop is also called a counted or indexed loop, which means a for loop is much more specific, which it has like an initialization statement, a loop condition, and also it has an update statement, as you'll see in a moment. Now, a for loop, for example, let's initialize a variable int. I'm going to say int. Let's say int I. Let me just check something here. Just small thing there. Okay, int I. So it's a for. Also secure in C++. Now for, because you initialize a for loop here, this is now the initialization, which means initializing to 0. Now here is where the condition is of the for loop. So where length is like the maximum, which means where your value is going to be as a comparison to based on the condition. So let's, for example, say int if I is less than 10, which is our compare variable, and here is where now we're going to be incrementing the variable I as an update statement. Now in the for loop, let's say cout awesome. Okay, so in the body of the for loop, we have this statement here of for loop, which means this for loop will be executed 10 times and it will be displayed 10 times, as you'll see in a moment. So let's compile this. Control-Shift-B. Awesome. Let's run this. Awesome. As you can see, we have for loop being printed 10 times, as you can see here. Awesome. Now guys, as I mentioned before, a for loop is similar in some context to a while loop. If I remove this and say while with the condition I is less than 10, now in here when I have a CL statement also again, let me say while loop similar to for loop. Okay, awesome. Include the counter control, which means it's going to be I plus. Awesome. Let's run this. Initialize variable I. Yeah, we need to initialize this. Let's initialize at 0. Let's run this. Awesome. As you can see, guys, we have while similar to a for loop, which means printed also 10 times. Which means, as you can see, there's a similarity between a for loop and a while loop, but now a for loop is much more constructed because it's summarizing how a while loop looks like. Because if you look at the syntax here, a while loop, you have to initialize a variable in a main function, but now like separate, and also you have a while the condition is true. Now in the body of the while loop, then you have now the statement being executed with the counter control variable here, which means like an increment variable of I. Awesome. Now let's go back to a for loop. For initialize again the variable for. And you can initialize, you can also declare a variable like guys, like within the while loop outside. But for me now here, I just want to show you like the syntax, how it looks. So we have this, and say 10 again. Awesome. Do this. Awesome. Okay. Save the same message on the outside. Awesome. Okay, so this is similar again as you saw before. Now what I'm going to do right now here is that if you look at this for loop here based on this condition, you can have you can change the condition based on the use case. For example, here we're just trying to compare or evaluate the value of I if it's less than 10. For example, we can also try and change the condition here where, for example, we can see if I is greater than or equal to. It depends on the use cases also in your program. Awesome. Let's, for example, try to use a prefix, because now we're using a postfix here. Let's use a prefix, but now let's use a decrement because it's an increment operator here using it of this plus sign. Let's use a decrement operator, which is like this negative signs. Now let me just change this value here. Let's do this. Let's say I is initialized to 100 and I is less than or equal to, say, 1. So we're going to decrement from 100 and to 1. Awesome. Now in the body of the for loop, we'll have a statement say cout the value of I. Awesome. Yes. Incline here. Okay. So as you can see now, we have a decrement operator being included here, but now we're going to decrement from 100. So let's run this and see. Awesome. As you guys can see now, we are eventually counting from counting down from 100 until 1, which is massive, as you can see. But now program works on point. Nice. So guys, as you can see, a while loop and a for loop have similar use cases in a way, but it depends on you, because now use case. If you want to use a for loop, you have to use a way you know that there's like a certain value and also a condition has to be met. If you have those two information, then you can use a for loop, which is much more sufficient for those use cases, because a for loop can also be used in a game. For example, if you have a player in a game, a player does the player has like a few variables, which means the player is like a name, of course, he has a gun, he has a speed of like velocity, which means moving in the game, so environment. So a for loop will like eventually run the game, it's gonna run until the player dies. Let's say, for example, the condition here will be the player has 3 lives, which means whenever he dies based on the for loop, which means one of his lives goes away, then there's 2 lives again, which means he plays again, of course. Afterwards, then is 1 life. This is like a condition. So for example, in a game, a for loop can be used in a game in that scenario where the player has 3 lives or 4 lives or whatever, and also he has this in a for loop, which is like his gun, he's moving, and so on and so forth. So guys, I hope you enjoyed this video. Don't forget to like, subscribe to my channel, click on the bell notification, and see the reports on my channel.